It is week 11 of the NFL season. I cannot believe I just said that out loud. We've been doing this for 11 weeks. That's 77 days. We're back. Michael McQuaid from Pomeroy, County Tyrone, from Naas, County Kildare, he wishes Mark Hogan, and from Clonakilty, home of Black Pudding, in Cork, Jason Hayes on the Pro Football Ireland NFL podcast, presented by SBK. Folks, presented by SBK, sportsbook that we're all using this year, big partner for us. And frankly, they have no casino. They have none of that stuff going on, just sports betting. That is it. And this week, there is a 25% builder boost on any of the Sunday games. Do check it out, including this beautiful game that we have in Madrid this weekend. Mark Hogan, as I always struggle to get the podcast out to the masses. A big welcome to everybody in the car, but a welcome to you boys. See us out for the next 30 seconds as I do this. How are you?
Yeah, I hope people are able to go to Madrid. It is somewhere I will not be this weekend. And I've had FOMO having been on Virgin. Great reason not to be at the international games for most of them this year, but missing Madrid and to see the Bernabeu in the NFL capacity for the very first time. We know how special it was getting the game in Spain. I remember we were in Vegas for that announcement, and obviously our boy Diego Campoy, the tear coming down his face, and we're saying, oh, can't wait until it's our turn to hear an announcement, let alone a game. It's funny that our game's come and gone, our announcement has come and gone, and they're only getting their go now. But I know the Spanish fan base. I know, Michael, you have a history, a former life living out in Spain for a while. I know it'll be a fun game for you. But yeah, it was
funny because I do want to mention that very quickly. I got a bit of hate this week saying, why are you jumping on the NFL Spain bandwagon? I lived in Spain for a year. I had a Spanish podcast for a football team, and I'm friends with a lot of people who I'm very.
And randomly, you drop Spanish into random conversation. I've seen you do it with your partner Lynn as well. You guys can actually speak a bit of Spanish now. Okay, well, you feel me.
Sí, señor. ¿Cómo estás? I mean, I lived in Barcelona, but it's ridiculous to see people from Ireland go on like that. Come on, wise up. And I'm not being negative. I'm really happy. Jason, have you ever watched the movie Slumdog Millionaire?
I know the gist of it. I don't know if I ever actually watched it. But
have you heard the song before?
Have
you heard the J-Ho? Yeah?
Have you reloaded the hotkeys, Michael? Is that what's going on here? You're going to give us a bit of a bang of it, are you?
No. I'm just saying J-His instead of J-Ho.
J-His. Okay.
How is everything down in Cork? You've got a beautiful county down there. People aren't happy that we're not coming up there in January. I will be back soon, I promise. I am one man, as I said to students this week. I am not an octopus. I only have 2 arms. So we'll be down very soon. How are you doing?
Cork has been fun lately. A lot of funky vigilante, or what's the word? I don't know, delinquency going on around the county. I don't know if you've been watching the news. I know one of the things made RT News, which is like some fella who lives 5 minutes from me had about 100 guns hidden in his house as he was living with his parents, and he got caught. What else happened? There's like 2 teenagers robbed a cherry picker, and they were driving around town the other day. The car, actually, myself and Becky completely oblivious the other night. It really sounds like I live in a rough area right now. I swear I don't. But the other night we were asleep, 1:00 in the morning, whatever. No idea what was going on, but a stolen car was abandoned at the end of her driveway, and it was only after seeing the CCTV footage of a neighbour. It's kind of hilarious just watching our house in darkness, fast asleep, safe and sound, and then there's like Gardaí and teenagers running around outside our house with an abandoned vehicle. So yeah, kind of been kept on our toes in Cork at the moment, Mick.
Stay safe, Jason, please.
I am actually stunned at how that conversation turned into that, like in a good way. Wow.
Look, I'm always telling you the positive side of Cork, so look, there's a more honest answer maybe.
Hey, Cork got through me. I know, Michael, you don't appreciate the lack of Belfast that gets brought up on FM's traffic coverage, but I tell you, Cork, the amount of closed roads due to flooding down there saved me doing any work for the last 12 hours, Jason. I tell you.
Well, I'll just say, as somebody that has been driving through South Armagh / little bits of Tyrone and Monaghan over the last 2 days. Shout out, actually, before we forget, shout out to Keith and all the Dolphins and Commanders fans flying over this weekend. I am on the 10 p.m. flight back from Dublin, or from Madrid to Dublin, and I expect coffee, tea, Pringles delivered to seat 2F on Sunday night. I'm joking. I know everyone's on the flight, so including my own GP who is heading over.
And you know what, Michael, we are talking about that game and a few others, and it's almost like there's some colossal matchups in week 11, so much so that I actually put into the group chat saying there's two ways that we can do this. We can look at some of the division matchups, but we ultimately said no, we'll wrap back around to them when they come up. That would have been like the LA Rams versus the Seattle Seahawks. And instead, we were, after running through multiple simulations, we said, let's go for some games that we could potentially see later on again this year, but would probably take a deep run into the playoffs to see it. We're going to look at that. Commanders, Dolphins, the last of the international games. We wanted to do, instead of Broncos, Chiefs, we're going to look at the Bucks and the Bills, and then the Eagles versus the Lions in a game that I want to mention now. As when I was thinking that I think we said last week that the Rams Seahawks is potentially the most likely matchup for the NFC Championship game. But I looked at our betting partner, SBK, and they actually have the Rams most likely to win the NFC, but then the Eagles, then Lions. The number 4 is the Seahawks. But each of those teams right now on fire. So we're going to talk about two of those teams today.
Never heard the word stimulator used in this podcast before. Jason, is that like a Nace thing or a Dublin thing? Or
Simulator? What?
You said stimulator.
I said simulator. And you know what? And as you get it out to the masses, and I refer back to Keith, massive obviously for Dolphins and Commanders fans getting to see their teams coming over once again. I hope Keith, you're obviously flying over to it, because he does not explicitly say he'll be on that same flight, Michael, that you'll hopefully make. Michael, how did you feel there when the game goes to overtime in Berlin on Sunday? Why are you under pressure? We talked about it last week on the podcast that you were going to make your flight.
I honestly was fine. Can I just say firstly to people on this podcast, I know it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday morning in your car. You're very, very welcome. Like Aer Lingus, you're very, very welcome. But we are presented sometimes by the Aer Lingus College Football Classic, so I can say that. But do you know what? The game went to overtime and the game went the distance. But honest to God, boys, just an enjoyable game. A game where I had the chance to meet so many guys, people from Indianapolis, people from Atlanta, met our good friend D. Orlando. Hey, guys. I was like, yes, sir. What's the crack? Happy enough. Was over. I think we sort of knew at that point it was going to go to overtime. Whenever the Colts get the ball back, it was going to go quite quickly. And I'll be the first man to say the Olympiastadion is iconic, but I ran out of that place. I looked at a taxi man and I went, get me to the airport right now. I'll pay whatever you want. And it was €100. And I got there and I got home. And more importantly, for anybody listening in an area of power, I was in work on Monday morning at 8:42 a.m. So I'm happy enough. The workaholic in me is delighted that there is a direct flight to Ireland this weekend. 10 o'clock's nice. I think Dara Carragher, Dara and Conor went over this weekend, which is hilarious. I can't wait. Like, Jesus, imagine them with all those Hawksport boys, with all the Spanish boys around the table just congressing, eating paella, and they all tap this little conchita, little padron pepper. By the way, I know my TV's on, but the remote is not beside me, and it's like flashing in my face. So hold on, here we go. This is not a dodgy stick, in case people are wondering. I pay for everything. You can get the college football on the Zone as well this weekend. Keith is saying into the Irish Rover on Saturday PM. Keith, I will say, I'll give a shout out to my friend Gavin here. I lived in Barcelona for a year. Gavin lived in Madrid for 6 years. Sadly for his sins, he's a dairy man. But Gavin always took me into a bar called the James Joyce. The James Joyce is the best Irish bar in Madrid by a country mile. And it is the Commander's bar this weekend. So I will try and get into the Irish Rover for all the Dolphins fans, but I'm definitely going to the James Joyce. There's some lovely bars near Grand Via, not towards Sol, but on the other side when you walk up. Lovely Irish bars. Sadly, some Liverpool bars as well. I would just say, folks, enjoy the Saturday, enjoy the Sunday. And I think before we talk about this game, very, very quickly, lads, because we're all soccer fans. Oh, soccer. We're all football fans. To see a game come to the Bernabeu for the first time is incredible. The fact that I'm not putting the narcissistic, quote unquote, as somebody said, hat on me here, but to have the opportunity to go to the Real Madrid training ground on Friday morning. What? Like, insane. And then the Miami Dolphins are training currently at the Wanda Metro, or I don't think it's called anymore, but the Metropolitano. So a great weekend. I will go out on a limb and say I believe that from what I have seen online in terms of what the NFL are doing with marketing, that this Madrid game is very much here to stay. I think they'll be in Spain every year going forward. I think they'll play in Atletico Stadium if not next year, the year after. And from speaking to a lot of guys that have been very good to us, guys from El Capitologist and different guys, not just guys like Diego, guys like Ruben, guys at the Spanish Bowl. We got Josevi joining us on Sunday. Hola, Josevi, ¿qué tal, hombre? I can see them going to Barcelona when the new camp's done up, but I can see them going to the San Mames in Bilbao over the next 2 or 3 years as well. The future is very, very bright for Spain, Mark, and I think for a lot of people, they're going to be very, very excited this weekend. But to see the game in the Bernabeu is really, really special, man.
Yeah, let's hope it stays bright in the few days to come. We get an absolute cracker. I will say, just keep your comments coming in. We'll probably focus on some games now for a minute, so I'll stop throwing them up. But Michael, looking forward to the McQuaid stats on Monday about Madrid. Obviously, we have to give you a shout out. You did get your shout out on McQuaid earlier on. I had a laugh at it.
Can I just say,
I love seeing it coming up.
Can I just say very quickly, because I know he's watching right now, I am going to forget about this. There is something coming properly because we want to do it proper. Andy Quinn is currently leading the nation, I believe, in punting in America upon his averages in terms of the games he started. He is flying. Andy, you're killing it, man. I know a lot of guys over there are fair play to him, and Mark, feel free to talk about that or go back into the Madrid top. But Andy, we appreciate you, sir.
No, one of the nicest guys in this world. No, I love Andy. He's doing so well. I guess we better, because we're like 20 minutes into this podcast. It feels like 10 minutes, and we better talk about the game. A game that, I don't know how you want to look at it. Obviously, the Commanders versus the Dolphins. When it was announced, we were thinking that the Commanders could have been a Super Bowl favorite. They're not quite there right now. Jason, is there something that sticks out to you for this game?
Yeah, I think, as you say, when it was first announced, we're probably thinking shootout, high-flying offenses. Hasn't quite panned out that way. Not to say that the game is without its point of interest, and there's still, plenty of stars peppered throughout these teams. So I'm sure the people of Madrid, much like us getting our first Irish game earlier this year, to have your first game in Spain, just seeing some of these freak NFL athletes in the flesh, it's going to be a show no matter what. I don't think this game is completely meaningless. I wouldn't write it off in any regard that way. Speaking about the Dolphins a bit, strange team to watch, particularly lately. If you just want to look at their last 4 games, they've gone 2-2. But the points difference in each of those games has been 17, 22, 24, and 25. So they're either getting hammered or they seem to be beaten up on the other team, which, much like this past weekend against Buffalo, some of these teams are good quality opposition. So this Dolphins team, certainly a team that's proven they can still beat anyone in the league on their day. Just focusing on their defense for a moment, bottom 10 in points per game and yards per game, and most of the struggles throughout the year have been defending the run. Haven't managed to turn over the ball too much, just 2 interceptions on the season. 8 forced fumbles. Interestingly, they've recovered all 8 of those forced fumbles, so it just goes to show, even when the production isn't there, a bit of luck going your way, as it did against Buffalo, can make some of these victories more easy and kind of swing the pendulum back in your favor. I found out a very interesting stat, because that is one of those most variable stats you can come across: fumble recoveries. And when you look at a team like Miami, 100%, 8 for 8, and I just happened to see the Jets there as well. 7 forced fumbles, just 1 fumble recovery, no interceptions on the season, of course. Sorry for the deflection there, ricochet shot on Jets fans, but that just goes to show even bad teams can be unlucky. And Miami Dolphins, bad team this year, but sometimes the bounce of the ball is going their way. I think, look, not to ramble on too much, but last week against the Bills, there were a number of positive things that the defense did that they haven't been doing this season. Tackling has been very poor as the season's gone on, but they made some crucial tackles against Buffalo, and they weren't giving them anything. One that stood out in my mind when I was watching the game back was 16-0 entering the 4th quarter. Defense had shut out the Buffalo offense, and Josh Allen throws a touchdown to Keon Coleman at the start of the 4th quarter to bring it to 16-6. If they convert that 2-point conversion, it's a 1-score game, and you could just see panic setting into that Dolphins team. But Minkah Fitzpatrick steps up. He's a guy who was talked about maybe getting traded away at the deadline. He stepped up, made a tackle on the 2-point conversion, and kept it to 16-6. Kept that 2-score cushion, and then the offense went off and scored and pretty much put the game out of reach. So So, it is a team they have their flaws. I'm not going to say they're perfect. They had 3 takeaways against the Bills, and you can't rely on that every week to, Josh Allen to fumble, a quarterback sneak, stuff like that. It did go with them, but one thing they did very well was tackle, as I say, and part of that is stopping James Cook. And as we know about this Bills offense, if you stop James Cook, they don't get things going through the air either. It allowed them to get a few sacks, put pressure on Josh Allen. And they'll certainly be looking to run that recipe again this week against Marcus Mariota, who I don't think they should completely overlook. Mariota, they did get beat up by the Lions last week, but Mariota played some good stuff, some good efficient offense, had a few splash plays. And I think it'll ultimately be the same formula that the Dolphins look to implement here. Stop the run and force Mariota into some mistakes by generating pressure.
Mark,
Well, I was going to say, if you came over or got to see Miami the last time playing in Germany, Michael, we were obviously at that game 21-14 it ended up, but it was 21-0 down where the Dolphins. I think the good thing about this, if you're going to this game, is we do expect points, right? You're obviously going to talk about the offense, Michael.
I mean, it's one of those things, like, if you look at the whole basis of this game, just to remind people, the game is live on Virgin Media 2 from 2:30 p.m. on Sunday. I am going to talk to not a Dolphins player, but a Commanders player on Friday. Props to them, props to Virgin, props to the NFL, props to both teams. Really interesting aspect before we talk about this Miami offense very quickly is the fact that outside of like the NFL Dublin game, we've seen teams come in on a different schedule. Like, both teams landed yesterday. Both teams were walking around Grand Via last night. Not to pop on the NFL, this is certainly we're all very grateful for the help and support, but it would have been great to have seen these teams come in a bit earlier in the Dublin and maybe make more of the week. I know it's an NFL's decision apparently, so I just want to say that. I think it's important to say that. But who in the hell would have gave this Dolphins offense or Dolphins generally as much of a chance as they would have had against the Buffalo Bills last week? And we can talk about the weather, we can talk about the curse, we can talk about the fact that Josh Allen can't get it done down there. They weren't productive last week, and Jason's talked about the defensive reasons why. If you look at the run game performance that the Miami Dolphins had against Buffalo last week, one of the best rushing performances they've had over the last 4 years of the Mike McDaniel era. They had 32 rush attempts for nearly 200 yards, but more so than that, they had 6.2 yards per rush, with the third highest single game rushing EPA in 3 years. What does that mean? Well, since 2022, the Buffalo Bills have conceded only 190 plus rushing yards 6 times. How many games have they played over that period? That's a serious amount of actual effort from this offense. And, we were talking weeks ago, and I said it multiple times to Jeff on the podcast that we do week by week on Pro Football Ireland, Jeff Reinbold's show, will we see Mike McDaniel in Madrid? We know he made that GM change. They know they had to do something different. But Mike McDaniel got to a point early in the week where he knew where he was. He knew he was there for the rest of the year at a minimum, and he knew that he had to get the job underway that week to make it happen against Buffalo. And he really went back to what he done best, which is really fighting back against narratives, fighting back against people that don't believe in him, and fighting back when there's question marks around him. The play calling effort, I thought, was absolutely superb, because the way that they won this game, and obviously the fact they had a bit of a difficult start too, was intercepted. The way that they won it, mainly on the ground, and were able to pound and ground at them, can show the Commanders this week that they're in trouble, because as Jason said there, Marcus Mariota is a serviceable quarterback, and I expect there to be points because both defenses can be a bit meh. But certainly as we go into the weekend here, I look at the Dolphins as a favorite team. Maybe not something I would have said weeks ago, but when you look at a Shane, when you look at Waddle, when you look at the plays that they can make, I think Jalen Wright had a bit of a burst of a run as well. Greg Dulwich, a guy I'm going to talk about later on, tight end, can get it done. He's done it in Denver as well. They have enough weapons on this offense to make a real difference in Madrid, and it's going to be interesting to see not just how they play this weekend in Madrid, but frankly, their season was dead and buried before this game against the Buffalo Bills. They now have an opportunity to win 2 on the bounce, to bring it all back in again, and McDaniel looks like a different man. We're going to see Darren Waller come back. We're going to see maybe Nick Westbrook, Ollie Gordon, Malik Washington in the second half of this year. If the Dolphins can get a win this week, I've seen stranger things is all I'm going to say. I certainly look at this offense and think they're going to put 20 to 30 points up on the board on Sunday against the Commanders, both on the ground and in the air as well, provided that their quarterback has a clean game, which I know is a very, very big question mark. But from talking to a few Dolphins lads that are heading over to the game, they're confident. They thought the year was done, and they now have potentially something to play for. And props to them. I think it's a good storyline to bring into the game. We had Sauce coming to Germany last week. We now have a Miami team that might be on the upward trend, which is good to see.
I'll tell you what as well, Mick. If they do want to put us, 3-7, it sounds like a stretch. But if they can get this win against the Commanders, Saints and Jets are the Dolphins' next two opponents. So, there is a path towards getting to 6-7. 6-7. That kind of happened. And then anything could happen from there. So McDaniel said as much in the press conference. People are writing the team off as if there's nothing to play for. A coach.
Did you mean to say 6-7 there?
Sorry.
Did you mean to say 6-7 there, or was it?
I didn't. No, I can't say.
Apparently,
the maths in my head.
Apparently, the new one with all the kids is 41. There you go. I don't know if Mark can bring that into his analysis or not. I'm not even joking. Apparently, 41 is the new 6-7. I think we're screwed as a generation, boys. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, if we're having to catch or keep up with random 2 digits every single week just to know that we're staying relevant. I'd only wrap my head around the 6-7. No, I don't want to get ahead of myself now. I think you guys might be getting a bit too excited. I think from Jason's point of view, maybe you're comparing it to the Cardinals record and thinking, look, I don't want to say a team can't turn around from a 3-7 spot, but when I look at
the Cardinals' schedule is looking very different, so I nobody's there. Don't worry.
Here, but look, like you're saying, the Dolphins.
Have you actually found a way? Have you actually found a way? 22 minutes into this, bring the Cardinals into this again. We're talking about the Madrid game, lads.
We are. It's a joke. Relax. Game over. You brought up Greg Dulcich, a former Denver Broncos tight end that didn't quite work out over there, right? So no, when you look at the defense, I don't expect the Miami Dolphins to go on a tear through the rest of the season, but certainly against this Commanders team, there's definitely an opportunity. Their defense has been obviously horrendous this week or this year, but in the 5-game losing streak that they're currently on, they've been conceding an average of 36 points a game. I mean, it's good news if you want to see points. It's bad news for the Commanders, obviously, so much so that Dan Quinn, obviously the head coach, he's taken over the defensive play calling duties. They've done everything to fix the defense in the last few weeks. They've simplified the playbook. They've changed how they're practicing to focus on physicality and takeaways. And they even moved their defensive coordinator down from the booth to the field just to get communication a bit better. It hasn't worked out. Dan Quinn is going to take over as what got him employed after that fantastic year with Dallas.
Did you see him in the Madrid Bravos jersey today? He had the Madrid Bravos jersey on, ELF jersey. We actually should do a podcast about the ELF. There's a lot going on. Has everybody heard about this?
No.
So basically, 8 teams have walked out and said they're not going to play. So they formed their own alliance. It's almost like the start of this podcast, which is 3 years old next week. We'll come back to that in a bit. But yes, he wore the Madrid Bravos gear today.
Is that
Can I just say, Mark,
from him?
Dan, no, it's great. It's great to see. It's really, really good to see. Can I just say very quickly, Mark? Dan Quinn is one of the nicest guys I've ever met, ever. And he's Irish.
He was
he loves
famously, yeah, he was at the dinner when the Burks tried to talk over him earlier on this year. If you get a chance to ask him in his press conference, please ask him what do you think was going on there. But look,
oh my God. Could you imagine if I asked him that?
I've heard crazier stories or questions being asked in press conferences at European games, Michael. So you might be able to get away with it.
5 weeks.
But when you actually look at the Commanders' defense, they're in a bad spot right now. The Lions were talking about them after the game and just said how obvious it was that Commanders team, with the slew of injuries in the defensive backs, were playing man coverage. Man coverage often dares teams to go and beat them, and we saw Jameson Williams had an absolute field day against him. But there was just problems straight. Obviously, Jameson Williams, the separation that he was able to get was just too easy. You saw teammates on the defensive side for the Commanders bumping into one another. Jamar Gibbs ran through 6 guys on the way to one of his touchdowns. There's not a quick fix solution, you'd imagine, from Dan Quinn. I think part of what we see from this team is the success that they had last year. That is nowhere close to what they are right now. Obviously, we haven't even talked about the offense. They're missing Jaden Daniels. They're missing Terry McLaurin. I don't think we give them a pass because they're missing defensive backs. Every team coming week 11 is missing a ton of guys. I think it's a shame if you're looking forward to this game, obviously, that you're hoping. But I think, Michael, I'm right in saying Madrid is primarily Miami Dolphins fans. When the Miami Dolphins are playing with a fire in their belly because of where they were and because they traded guys away and they said, no, we're not done yet, I think that's a scary place for the Commanders having to face this team.
I don't know. The NFL brought out information over the last week where they estimate around 85 to 90% of ticket sales were from Spain alone. So I think you're going to see a real mix of people. And let's be frank, it's a huge country. It's had its problems in terms of different things.
Maybe it's like when they call Ireland Steelers country, even though it's kind of a we hope that.
Well, you've got Barcelona, you've got Bilbao, you got Sevilla, you got Valencia. You're going to have people coming from everywhere. Like Valencia is way down towards the bottom, as I mentioned. Josevi, this is what annoys me. I said at the start about talking about people. It's right to acknowledge people. People have worked very, very hard in Spain to get games over there. They had 150,000 people watching the game on Cuatro on Sunday. If you work in the NFL, you take a vested interest in something. So, I'm really, really buzzing for people in Spain. And I guess the biggest storyline of the weekend is Diggin, whose birthday is today. Can we all just look at the camera very quickly and say happy birthday, Connell? Happy birthday! His 19th birthday today. We're really happy for him. But Diggin and Carragher are coming over, and that could be a movie in one. Like me as the parent and my two children. So I think it's going to be a great weekend, man. I'm just excited. I had the chance to go to the Bernabeu in July, and I've obviously been before, Galactico era and stuff. But I'm so excited. I'm just devastated I can't go to the Aviva on Thursday night because of it. But that's a whole different storyline. Mark, Bucks playing a big game this weekend.
But before that, I'll just ask you because I think it's interesting. So
I'm taking the Dolphins by 17 points. Thank you for asking.
So that's what SBK has them down as 2-point favorites. Jason, are you leaning on them as well?
Dolphins 41-0. No, that was. I think 27-21 Dolphins.
27-28. No,
I'll take 27-10.
Turnovers. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope we're able to get a high scoring game. And you know what, Michael, it's great that it's obviously on Virgin Media as well. Shout out one more time. We were not doing the coverage the other day, but what a savage game. Obviously the Colts Falcons was in terms of scoring. So hopefully we get something like that. Yeah, the other game that I'm picking the Dolphins too. I think more of a similar scoreline to Jason than your prediction, Michael.
Just add into the other game very quickly. I don't think it was on Virgin Media, and I don't think Sky Sports showed the whole thing either. So I will just say it was the anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall. But they had a singer singing "Winds of Change," and in when people were waving the flag in the tifo, and instead of being a journalist or a field journalist on my part, sitting recording it, I sat back and I just smiled and enjoyed it. It was absolutely phenomenal, and London, including Dublin and every other place that's hosted the game, could learn from the way that Germany done that game at the weekend. It was absolutely superb. Props to them. We had the better NFL experience with Tig and the boys in a big, massive field net and everything. But the Germans certainly gave it a good effort. And Dankeschön to the people of Germany. I hope we can come back next year and have many more pretzels with butter, Mark. Pretzels with butter. Who would have thought it was a good idea?
Transitioning out of this game, though, Commanders without Daniels, I'll throw up some comments. Commanders without Daniels and McLaurin shows the difference when marquee players are out. I think that's going to be a theme as we talk about them through the rest of the game. And we also got one from Jer saying that he's at a concert, at the Offspring concert. They haven't played the song about me yet. I don't know what that quite means, but Jer, thanks for that one. He actually sent me a picture.
We do have some breaking news.
And Michael, I'll just throw this one up real fast. A shout out to Andy Quinn, Anthony James. I just sent you the post to Andy Quinn, OSS. Maybe you'll understand that one a bit better than me, but shout out to him.
We do have some breaking news regarding the New York Giants. We're not going to talk about Daboll. We might if we get time at the end. If you have a question, fire it in. Good luck to him. All the best. Graham Gano has just been placed in IR. So
Younghoe Koo is going to obviously be the kicker there.
Jude might come back.
Jude might come back. We'll talk about it maybe later on. I might have
Maybe.
something relevant. We'll see. Here, so the next game that we'll talk about in this section is that Bucks versus Bills game. Again, high flying. Like I said, we could have ended up talking about the Broncos versus the Chiefs in this spot, but that game will come up again actually around Christmas time. So I said, why don't we look at this one? This is that if you'd probably looked at this, maybe Jason, in week 5 or so, people could have said that this was a potential Super Bowl matchup. Are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers still there, do you think? Or actually, don't, Michael, I'll say it to you first because, Jason, you're on the defense again, right? Unless you want to launch in with the defense if you wish.
I'm happy to throw up the offense very quickly here because I've written down, is written the word? I know everybody up north doing their GCSE English on Monday. Shout out to my wife, who is currently having a week from hell at the moment. You lads don't do the leaving cert in the middle of the year, no? Or like the junior cert?
No.
All the kids up north are doing their English exam Monday. Bad England for me. Apologies for that. It's funny because you talk about the Bucks, and obviously I mentioned Jeff earlier on, but I'll just say him again here. Jeff was asked by Sky Sports at the start of the year to do who he thinks is going to get to the Super Bowl, and he picked the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And by God, did I FaceTime him and laugh at him? I was like, "What? What are you smoking? Send someone a post, thank you." And Jeff goes, "No, I believe in this team." And then you look at the way they played in the first few weeks of the season, and you go, "Jesus, Jeff's right here. Like this team it's pretty explosive with what they had and with what limited options they had." You see the way Ibuka's playing or has been playing for the first few weeks, and just how legitimately improved Baker Mayfield gets year on year on year on year. But then you couple that with, the last 3 games, the way that they've played, it's been pretty underwhelming on the offensive side of the ball. The question I think going into this game has to be the opposition that they're playing for a start, but also, do they have a problem when it comes to offensive football? And I think that's a big storyline, certainly in Florida and Tampa Bay this week, but upon the NFL sort of narrative this week, because when you lose 28-23 against the Patriots, and look, Patriots are a good football team. We should probably talk about them some week, lads, at some point. A lot of Irish fans, New England Patriots fans. It doesn't really matter, though, because while they put 23 points up, they've been pretty underwhelming in terms of what they're doing. When you look at their injuries, they are quite heavily injured. Chris Godwin, Bucky Irvin, Luke Godke, Cody Mauch, never mind Mike Evans. Is there ever going to be a point this season where this offense is up to about 85 to 90% of its healthiness? Because right now, it doesn't look good. They're relying on Dan Feeney, Mike Jordan, Charlie Heck, Sterling Shepard as well to make plays where you just don't see that happening, especially against the Bills team this weekend. But certainly for me, in terms of, you see different teams in the league where we're getting to the point in the year, Mark and Jason, where certain head coaches are going, I'll take the headset, I'll make the plays, my ass on the line here. Josh Grizzard, who is in his first year calling offensive plays, is definitely struggling a little bit. He looks confused at times. Some of the personnel calls, some of the play calls have been questionable. So I guess you have to ask yourself, if you have that issue with the availability of players, if you have that issue with the way that they're playing, especially in the second half over the last 3 games, and if you have that issue with the play calling, how exactly are you meant to get it right against the Buffalo Bills team that's going to be reeling going into this week? I think it's really, really difficult, to actually come in and see this. They're 1.5 games up on the NFC South, but we still have a long way to go. We're just past the halfway mark. So if they can get it going, could we see potentially somebody else jumping in and helping out the offense in terms of play calls more? When are we going to get Mike Evans back? When are we going to see that situation happen? I would worry against a Bills team that on its day can be lethal, especially on the ground. But I would also worry about people getting to Baker Mayfield in this Bills defense this week. I think there's going to be a few more cracks in this Bucs offense before it gets better. I am not saying that they're not in the hunt to win a Lombardi Trophy. They're not in the hunt to challenge for the NFC Championship. But I do think that this will bring them down to the echelon over the next few weeks of they'll be the 4th ranked team in the NFC when it's said and done if they win a division, and that's only. a bit concerned about the moment. What I will say very quickly on this is, I like the ownership from Baker Mayfield saying it's on him, it's on the team to get better. They know it, and by God, do they have an opportunity this weekend?
John, I suppose it's worth pointing out, Michael, they do have Bucky Irving and Chris Godwin back practicing this week, so it's worth paying attention to see, do they get that shot in the arm? Of course, they have been hamstrung.
But is it like me on Sunday morning after a night in the James Joyce? Am I there, but I'm not there? Do you know?
Well,
and I will be there, Mark. Don't worry. But
I think, well, they've obviously getting some use out of the Graham game, but I do believe that, like, Chris Godwin, if he's on the field, he's still going to take attention that, you know, like you're saying, isn't maybe there to help out Emeka Egbuka at the moment. When you're talking about the negativity around your Bucs offense, I feel the same way, and I think a lot of Bills fans feel the same way about what's going on in Buffalo right now. The GM there, Brandon Breen, absolutely on the hot seat in an insane way after losing to the Dolphins last week, especially the manner that it happened. In a nutshell, they do not have a skill position player, a receiver that scares you, except for Dalton Kincaid. And guess what? Dalton Kincaid looks like he won't be playing this weekend. He got injured last week. The decision from Miami last week was sell out and defend the run because no one is going to get open downfield. Do I have proof of that? Absolutely. It was 3.53 seconds to throw from Josh Allen as he just patted the ball, looking for someone to get free. That even took up 9 seconds at one point that he was able to escape pressure when he got Curtis Samuel on a 21-yard pass. That's how long it takes because he just has to look downfield. Guys are not getting open, and that's against a beat-up Miami Dolphins team there the other day. I think you have to put the context to this, that in the offseason, they completely committed to not having a number one wide receiver. I think they looked towards Kansas City the last couple of years and saying, well, if Patrick Mahomes can do it, so can we. I think they probably ignored the fact that Joe Brady is not Andy Reid calling his offense. And they also probably leaned in way too hard to Josh Allen's numbers last year, which were absolutely outrageously efficient in terms of just getting balls into guys' hands so that they did not have to do a whole lot of work. It is that whole thing now. If you were to defend the run, they've no one to throw it to. And I have to bring up the quotes from earlier on this year when Brandon Beane was asked during the offseason by a local radio station, let's give him a shout out, WGR 550 in Buffalo. And Brandon
WGR 550.
I know. Where do Americans come with these crazy? Why can't we just have Today FM? And he says bitching about wide receivers is one of the dumbest arguments. It doesn't look too dumb right now. They're forcing Josh Allen to play hero ball. What did that end up in the other day? He has that run, and at the end, it's a fumble because he has to keep going, and it has to be all on him.
Go back the week before as well. You know, they should have been dead. Like, the Chiefs should have been dead and buried in the second half of that game. He didn't have enough to actually get it out to. He had to rely on the run game. He had to rely on his legs as well. Eventually, that is going to hit.
And then come back in the third quarter, and they have he has an end zone interception because, again, you see him look one way that isn't there. He pats the ball once more, and he just throws it in. It gets intercepted because he doesn't have guys that are creating separation. Jason, I'll let you talk about it here, but I will say that the Bucs defense they became the third team since the year 2000 to give up 4 50-yard plus plays since 2000, if I haven't said that yet. So if you are to have explosive plays, and we know the Buffalo Bills love them, Jason, is it going to be against this Bucs defense?
Yeah, 4 50-yard plus plays, 3 of them went for touchdowns. It's can they stop James Cook? I just talked about Dolphins' success in doing so. Mark, you're talking about how one-dimensional the offense becomes when they don't have James Cook firing all cylinders. That's going to be the game plan. Can they do it? We saw Travion Henderson last week for New England pop off for almost 150 yards and 14 carries. It was really his big breakout moment. I think it's a solid unit. I don't want to push. What the hell?
I didn't mean to press that. I'm really sorry. I actually didn't mean to press that.
I don't want to push the panic button yet on this Bucs defense. You know, it is a solid unit. You got Vita Vea at defensive tackle, just a fridge of a human. Levante David still looks good at his age. They will be looking to mimic some of that Dolphins success, I think, and selling out to try and stop the run, which means there'll be particular emphasis put on their backfield, which I like. We've got Jamel Dean there, cornerback. Antoine Winfield, we know what he can do. And I really like Tyke Smith, second-year free safety. He's looked really good, leads the team in tackles. He has a few sacks. Crucial pick against Drake May last week. In a way, he's like a mirror image of Antoine Winfield. So, he can just kind of do it all. Tackles in the backfield, turnovers, covering wide receivers. He just seems like a guy that can, make plays. So they will try and stop the run. We know how good Josh Allen, the Buffalo offense, can be when they reach their potential. So if they stop the run, they can get pressure on Josh Allen just like Miami did, and maybe force him into a few mistakes that he's not used to making. Todd Bowles loves to blitz, as we all know. It's fun defense to watch when he's calling it. Normally, when you look at a quarterback with the name of Josh Allen, you think veteran guy, high quality. He's going to be able to tear apart any defense that try blitzes him. Over the past few weeks, we've seen defenses try and have some success. Atlanta, they blitzed 55% of plays against Josh Allen, and we saw how that game went and how many mistakes they made. Part of that, Mark, no doubt, is because the defenses are backing themselves to take on those receivers one-on-one because they just don't think they can beat them. And even when I saw a quote from the press conference this week, Josh Allen was asked about his receivers. I think Keon Coleman was mentioned specifically. And it was one of those questions where it's a chance for Allen to jump in and defend his guys and place trust in them. But the answer was more like, yeah, they need to be better. We all need to be better. So, he's not taking it easy on those guys either, I'm sure, behind the scenes. Really, really intrigued to see how this one plays out. I think that side of the ball in particular is what I'm interested in looking at most in this game.
Okay, that is the end of the first part. And we will be back for the second part on the podcast very shortly. If you're live right now, stay with us. Okay, we've got about, lads, 30 minutes here. Oof. Sorry, love you. Let's go. 3, 2, 1. It is the second part of the PFI Week 11 NFL podcast presented by SBK on the Pro Football Ireland network of podcasts. You can get the college football podcast right now ahead of a key Week 12, which sees Pittsburgh face Notre Dame with College Game Day going to Pittsburgh for the first time, I believe, ever, or in at least 2 decades. That's going to be fun. Darren Connell break that down because I had to work in the morning and they done the podcast. This is the NFL podcast. Jeff's picks come with SBK this week. You can obviously check out SBK. The link is in the bio. There is a 25% bet builder boost this weekend. It does make a big difference to us. Sportsbook only, no bull, no casino, etc. 18 plus. Please, folks, do gamble responsibly. And I'm here with Mark Hogan and Mr. Hayes. Mark, this is a really, really big game for the Lions this weekend, going into play the Eagles in Lincoln Financial Field on Sunday Night Football in a game, frankly, that they'll want to win. The question is, who is going to win this game, Marcus? Who are you looking at in detail in this segment?
I kind of ended up with the Philadelphia Eagles, which I was happy to do because I know you boys are going to look at the Lions. But if you listen to part one or if you've been listening live, I suppose I've been kind of negative about the teams that I've talked about, the Bills.
You're never negative, Mark.
And the Commanders. I actually think, I think we had this conversation earlier on in the year that it's like when you end up focused on a team, you convince yourself, like, no, I'm picking this team. Like, I know something you guys don't know. Whereas I don't know what happened to me this week, but like I picked the Bills. It's like, no, but I don't like how the Bills are playing right now. I have the Commanders defense. I don't like how they're playing right now. The Philadelphia Eagles, I love what they do defensively. I think it's the usual precursor that I have to say that they've the best defensive mind in the NFL with Vic Fangio. In somewhat of a luxury move, they were trying to shore up their cornerback spot. They traded for Jair Alexander, who retired earlier on today. Traded a 6 for him only 2 weeks ago because what they had noticed was Cooper DeJean, they were kind of having to play him more outside where he's more closer to average, but he's elite when you play him in nickel. Quinion Mitchell, the other draft pick that they got last year, second-year player, is playing outrageous, obviously, but he's getting more looks as they give safety to the corner on the other side of the field. The talent just got better with Jalen Phillips having one of the best debuts of all time, seemingly against the Packers on Sunday Night Football. And their first round pick, Jihad Campbell, his snap count is actually diminishing because Nakobe Dean, the linebacker, has been playing so well. It's just, I suppose, it's all golden on the defensive side of the ball. But when you look, here we go. We have a comment from Mickey McVeigh. Eagles D is back. Can't wait for the Lions test. No, absolutely. Because
it sounds like it's Roman, doesn't it? Mickey McVeigh.
Yeah, and it's so exciting because these teams kind of match up so well. When, like, you know, we've talked before, the way that they play man is like, we want you to beat us man to man. Like, we think our guys are better than yours. So it's exciting to see them going up against such talent. Obviously, Amon Ra, Sam Laporta, the Jameson, like you boys will talk about them in a second now. He says he's from Armagh, Michael. But when I look at the Philadelphia Eagles on offense, I mean, my God, talk about usual precursor. Is the usual precursor of the offense to say that AJ Brown is upset once again? In September, he took to Twitter with a cryptic message. In October, he went to Instagram. This week, he was playing Madden on, I guess, a Twitch stream. I guess that's where you do your gaming. And he was playing as himself. And he says, these are the only highlights of me playing football this year. I'm paraphrasing there, but the actual quote that he followed on to say, if you got me on fantasy, get rid of me. Why is he so unhappy when he's with this team? And it's kind of like, I think part of it might be, like, I have to think of Nick Sirianni. I think he's so lucky that he has the roster he does, because it almost seems like the team wins despite of him sometimes. And when you think about AJ Brown, it's not that they're not targeting. He came out, he's been asked about like targets going to AJ Brown. He said some of the looks, even on is one of the other touchdowns, it was supposed to be going to AJ Brown. It just didn't, because maybe it is that teams just defending, you know, the top players and putting their coverage on AJ Brown. That's why having ballers all over the field absolutely helps. But there's a conservativeness to Nick Sirianni's play calling that kind of winds me up, and that's why it's such a good test against one of the best either side, Dan Campbell, and his aggressiveness and how he wants to go for it. Whereas Nick Sirianni, all right, so there's an opportunity at the end of the game there where the actual correct analytical decision per ESPN, they threw it up on screen, you would have gotten a 5% win bonus if you'd punted the ball. But Sirianni does go for it. Doesn't work, fine. But earlier on in the game, earlier in the second half, there was a 3rd and 12 that they were already in field goal range. So instead of trying to convert, they were clearly happy to take the field goal instead of maybe going to one of your big receivers. And I think that's what pisses the players off. There's clearly like an emotion, especially from AJ Brown, towards how the whole thing is going. And I suppose I think that it falls with Nick Sirianni for me, because he just moved this week to the 4th highest all-time winning percentage. Guy Chamberlain back in the 1920s, I have no idea, it was a limited sample size, but John Madden and Vince Lombardi are the modern era guys that Nick Sirianni hangs his hat amongst. There's just something not convincing about the Philadelphia Eagles to me. Like, we obviously saw the touch push against the Giants that like went in their favor and stuff. Like, when people give off about the Kansas City Chiefs getting a lot of decisions going their way, I just feel like a lot of that has happened. Like, they've regressed more this year, the Philadelphia Eagles, to maybe like they don't have those big plays and stuff. They're not as exciting to watch. And wants to go win a Super Bowl now, Michael. That's why I say all that. Well, it's just a very current thing that I'm saying, especially going. Thinking about Dan Campbell versus Nick Sirianni. I suppose that's my point in terms of this game specifically.
If you compare a champion, a reigning champion, look at what we've seen in Arizona. Look at Arizona mentioned in the second half of this podcast. Look what we've seen in Arizona when the Chiefs won it, and look at the way they played the following year and still got to the Super Bowl. I think that's what I would say with the Eagles. But that's the talent again. Like, then that's why I start with mentioning, I know it's Vic Fangio now, and maybe Jonathan Gannon also won because of the talent. I know they like got to that position because of the talent that they had. Like, it's because of Howie Roseman, like one of the best GMs of all time, that they have outrageous talent and they are able, like I said, to be trying to shore up guys. Like, their defense is just outrageous. That there's such talent on the field that I think it's hard to not win with them. Jason, I see you nodding. I hope that.
Well, that's what's kind of frustrating. And I almost said the exact same last week, Mark, talking about the Eagles' offense. It's just not for the quality of players they have on that side of the ball. We should be more excited to watch them. We've seen what Jalen Hurts can do. We've seen what he's capable of in these playoff stretches, in Super Bowls. He can absolutely tear apart an NFL defense. He's got 2 very good receivers out wide, great tight end, probably the best running back in the league, and some very strong offensive linemen. So it doesn't make sense that it feels like their game plan is do the bare minimum to get a win every week. It's just so risk averse. And yeah, I just don't agree with it. I mean, you want to watch your team, play to the best of their ability week in, week out. Getting away, it's almost like Jose Mourinho style football we're watching right now. It's just he knows the defense is so good. Why doesn't he trust the team? They've won a Super Bowl. All these players have proved themselves. Why doesn't he trust the offense to
keep the energy? It's like 9 o'clock on Christmas morning, Jason, when you've had a couple of Toblerones and you know you're getting a bit of stuff and you're thinking to yourself, right, do you know what? I'm going to hold off here at about 3 o'clock. I'm going to watch The King if you're up north. Or we're going to sit down and watch the big movie if you're in the south. And you go, do you know what? I'll have a big feed in the evening. And they're going to have a big feed in a few weeks. They might have a big feed this week. Do you know what I mean?
And that's the thing. They have the talent to get it done and to turn it around. I mean, we've seen so many teams week 10. I don't know if I'm giving it a mention, but for some reason I was thinking about, I'll hold off because actually you're talking about Packers in a second, Michael. But I did want to leave this comment up. Mickey is absolutely right. Rather win than be exciting. 100%. 100%. You're dead right. I agree with you, Mickey. It's just
you can do both. Yeah, let's do both.
Yeah, you can do both. And especially when
tell the Commanders that on Sunday.
And it's Monday Night Football just gone by, that standalone game. This game's going to be Sunday Night Football. It's like, yeah, like when we've seen the heights that team, and no better example than the Super Bowl against the Chiefs last year, we can see this on fire offense. And again, like I love a bit of defensive football. It was great the other day, but there's expectations and hopes just as fans too, not just purely from the wins and losses, Colin.
Jason, you're going to talk about the Lions offense, I believe.
Yeah, so as Mark alluded to, kind of clash of the heavyweights. We've seen what that Philly defense did last week, and this Lions offense, maybe a bit more up and down than what we've seen in recent seasons, but still second in the league in scoring. And the standards are set high in an organization when there's a play caller change, when they were putting up the totals that they were. A couple of 20-point games and a loss to the Vikings was enough for Dan Campbell to take back that play calling duty from John Morton, which seemingly he responded well to. I don't want to read too much into it, and I won't harp on about it too much, but yeah, this Lions team absolutely tore apart the Commanders last week. First team offense scored in all 7 possessions that they had, 500 plus yards in offense. Goff was as efficient and, one of his best games numbers wise that we've seen, and it was his 8th straight road game with a 70% completion percentage, which extends his own record. So just shows the quality of football that Jared Goff is still playing. Maybe not getting as much attention. The Lions as a whole are kind of flying under the radar a bit more right now, which maybe suits them. We saw how much hype they had last year. But this is still a very good team, I think. Offensive line performance has been maybe regressed slightly this year. A few poor games, but very strong again last week, opening up massive holes for Jahmyr Gibbs, who went off 10 touchdowns now through 9 games. And he's averaging almost 10 yards per carry against the Commanders. Jameson Williams as well, if you want to look at the wide receivers. He's been anonymous at times this year, but he really came to life. He said after the game that if this team matches us up in man coverage, which they did, they knew he was going to tear them apart. When you've got a guy with his speed who can run these crossing routes, you just can't keep up with that as a cornerback. And he went for 119 and a touchdown. So very interested to see how the Eagles deal with that. Will they try and man him up as well? It's easier said than done, but I that Eagles defense obviously has a bit more talent. Overall, when I look at this Lions team, and if you want to look through their schedule over the last 9 weeks, they've had some huge games against poor opposition. They've put on 30, 40, 50 points even against certain teams, but most of those blowout wins have been against some very poor defenses and subpar opposition. So just because Dan Campbell has stood back in and taken back play calling, and they put up 44 points on what is an old below par Commanders defense, I'm not going to just turn around and say everything's fixed now and they're back to the Ben Johnson production. Again, very high level of criticism here because it is a good offense. But I do want to see, that's the question mark for me right now. We saw what the Chiefs did to them a couple of weeks ago. I just want to see this Lions offense put up a very strong performance against one of the best defenses in the league, because they probably haven't done that a whole lot this year. It's been beating up on lower opposition, and those type of games is what is putting them in that second points per game ranking. It's probably not wholly reflective of a consistent team, which they haven't really been.
And that's why we love seeing on Sunday Night Football. Michael, I hope you're going to talk about special teams, because the main man, Justin Turner, Ireland's another future International Fan of the Year, hopefully.
I hope so. I really hope so.
I said about Andy for the Colts on Instagram the other day. But yeah, comments. My concern as a Lions fan is our kickoff and punt coverage has been poor. If Eagles get a short field, it'll be tough. And I suppose that's something that the Eagles can benefit from their offense if they're able to get them to short fields, just like the Steelers did a couple of weeks ago against the Colts. Defenses obviously have massive say in this.
Every Monday or Tuesday, depending when the Lions play, I like to get a cup of tea, preferably Barry's, and sit down and listen to what Dan Campbell has to say post-game, because it's box office. And I absolutely love the guy, and I will be honest, I did potentially write Will Campbell in an article for RTE last week after not too many coffees. Proofread it and went, hold on, who's Will Campbell? And then I realized I changed it up very quickly. When you've seen the way that they played last week, and you've seen the way that they could perform last week in terms of what they were able to do on both sides of the ball, when we're sitting in week 10, when Dan Campbell genuinely admits that he's enjoying their performance, even though there are things to improve, he knew there were ways to make more plays, and they couldn't do it. They didn't do it. He knows they have to finish better when they go up against Philadelphia this week, because he knows, as you boys have rightly said, the plethora of talent that the Philadelphia Eagles have in front of them. But when you look at the way Brian Branch, played, when you look at the way that obviously Dan's long lost son Jack played, and when you look at the way that Arnold and Yasin played, they have standout performers. Collectively, their defense needs to perform better. They need to finish better, and they need to make more of the plays defensively that they were in the position to make against Washington last week that they didn't make. It's funny, because when you look at their defense, they could improve on third down averages, and I don't want to jump into the offense, but they could certainly go better on third down performances as well. It feels like whenever they get to that third down situation that the fear factor comes in when it's almost not the smaller teams. And Jason was right when he said about their schedule. Like, go look at some of the teams that they're facing over the last 7 to 8 weeks of this regular season. They have some big matchups, both home and away. We know they've got a big game on Thanksgiving that you can join us down for in Dublin. The link is in the bio. I have to say it before I forget about it. But one guy to focus on, and a guy that really had a big game against the Commanders, is a guy that Campbell commended. Defensive tackle Roy Lopez Jr. He had an absolutely huge game against the Commanders last week, but in recent weeks he's been quite limited because of injury and where he was at the start of the season. The Lions sort of went off a bit with Tyreek Williams, and while Tyler Lacey, who's been getting a lot of reps at the moment, has not played as well as Lopez, you can see them going towards him going forward. There's an unbelievable stat on X. The run defense for the Lions, with or without Roy Lopez in the field. And why am I talking about this? Because they're going up against a guy called Saquon Barkley this week. And this is the key to the game, frankly. Can they stop the run? When they have Lopez in the team, the average is 2.9 yards per rush. That's first in the NFL. A 34.6% offensive run success rate. Fourth, flip it around when they don't have them. They're 4.9 yards per rush average, 28th in the league, and a 37.9 offensive run percentage rate. That goes down to 12th in the league. The reality is, though, when you look at the run stuff and how you can stop the run, with Lopez, they're second in the league, and without him, they're 28th in the league. And the last time I checked that on its day, if Saquon can get open and run, he's going to run for days. It doesn't matter if it's the Detroit Lions, or if it's the Tennessee Titans, or if it's the New York Giants. Saquon will find a way. There will be moments in this game where he will make that explosive run. There'll be moments in this game where he can get his 10 to 12 to 15 yards on the game. There'll be moments in this game where he makes it happen regardless of who is on the field. And the Lions defensively need to be ready for that. They also need to find a way to stop the worst play in the league. Because if they can't, Nobody can, and it's starting to really piss me off, man. But there will be moments where this defense will be down in the trenches, and Conor Mangan calls it about Campbell in the trenches. He loves it. He's right. If anybody can get in the trenches against this Eagles team and go up against it defensively, it's the Lions. Getting to Jalen Hurts, stopping anything happening, making Jalen Hurts throw the ball because we know he doesn't want to do that, and stopping this run game. That's the key to the game for me. I'm taking the Lions to win in Philadelphia this weekend, which is a big shout. But I think they're going to come. I think they're going to come good. I think they're going to go up a level over the next few weeks and really put themselves in that cement for a talk about the NFC overall. And it's a big game for them in a division where it's getting more and more crazy every week, frankly, in the NFC North.
Yeah, a 3-point spread in favor of the Eagles per SBK. Michael, I don't know if you shouted them out at the start. So yeah, obviously this podcast brought to you by SBK. Please gamble responsibly and for fun. For help, gamblingcare.ie. Yeah, I think I have to go Lions as well, though. Like, they were underwhelming, even though I picked and backed the Eagles when they're underdogs against the Packers the other day. Jason, what do you reckon?
It's a tough one. On the one hand, it could be one of those games where it just feels like the Lions might need it a bit more if they're going to win their division compared to the Eagles. But then again, Eagles are home. It's going to be, we know the type of atmosphere that they have up there in Philadelphia. I think I'll go with the Eagles as much as I'll go with the Eagles.
Yeah, good chat. And it's funny because if you flipped it and it's the exact same setup, Jason, but it is in Detroit. It's like Philadelphia matches the same level of intensity from its fans as well. Talk about another thing that's going in Nick Sirianni's favor. Michael, I'm aware that you want to keep moving. So let us rant is what we wanted to do next. As we,
I can start very quickly if you'd like.
It is not just a plain rant. We are going to be hopefully informative as we do this. But there is some issues, Michael. Clearly, one has caught your eye.
This is where we need young Saif Armagh comrade Dark Harder on the podcast, lads. I woke up on what day did Green Bay play? Monday Night Football. I woke up on Tuesday morning, and the first thing I seen was a legitimate conversation about the future of Matt LaFleur in Green Bay in week 11. Wise up. Now, look, I understand there's been to be fair, there have been changes in the organization post NFL draft. Ed Policy has come in as a new Packers president. He has openly said that nobody's job is safe, that he will not extend the contracts of LaFleur or the GM this year. Both have still got 2 years, or both had still 2 years left going into this year. There may be a situation in the off season where they evaluate that. Let them play ball. Let's get to the end of the year. They're still very much in the hunt. They haven't had a good couple of weeks. I understand that. But they have potentially the talent there. It wasn't pretty on Monday night. And a shout out to the UK and Irish Packers that went over to that game and had the tricolour in the locker room and everything. Props to them. And looking at Mark Hogan's reaction, he really needs to get back on social media a lot more than that. But, yes, ridiculous. Just shocking stuff from people that should be focusing on week 11 and winning games than asking for a guy that gives us all to go. If they had a negative record, I completely get it, but they're very much in the hunt, lads, at the minute.
Well, I wouldn't even get it. Like, the one thing, and this is what I stopped myself saying earlier on, was Jordan Love's first year as the starter. Through 9 weeks, he did not have any numbers. The offense was all screens, just like we're seeing now. And it was then that Matt LaFleur was like, well, I need to just do something different. It was this time of year that they changed the offense. And that's why going into his second year as the full-time starter, there was huge positivity and he was able to get the contract, yada, yada, yada. If Matt LaFleur was to become a free agent tomorrow, he would be a monster name. Everyone would want him inside the building. Michael, you're definitely right to point out.
Including the New York Giants, who we still haven't talked about, who have no more head coach. We'll talk about that at a different point. We spent 30 minutes on the Giants a few weeks ago on this podcast, and
there's still an opportunity. Who knows? Jason, what do you want to rant about?
Let me begin by pointing out my own shortcomings here, because I have two things to apologize for. Mick, I didn't see your message. I just checked it now. And my topic is very similar to yours. Second thing, Mark, you said it should be an informed rant. I'd say this rant is more like old man raising cow. But let me go for it anyway. So Here are some headlines.
This stinks
Oh yeah,
of really
he
ruin
wants Matt
Friday.
LaFleur being fired, doesn't he?
This stinks of really ruin Friday when we're all wrecked. And right, go on ahead, go for it.
Here's some headlines from recent history. So it's kind of more general view of what Michael's talking about. Calls mount for Matt LaFleur to be fired as fans rip head coach's garbage play calling. Next one. Should Ravens, John Harbaugh part ways? What history says about firing coaches with long-time winning records. Even Mike Tomlin's biggest fans admit Steelers' tenure should end. 49ers need to fire Kyle Shanahan. The reactionary nature of some of these fans, columnists, especially those that follow some elite franchises like the Packers, like the Steelers, like the Ravens. I'm a follower of a poverty franchise. I know many people who follow the likes of the Jets. At the London game this year, I left after the Browns lost in crushing fashion again, and you could see just the look of just complete dejection from the Browns fans. There are franchises in the league who would do absolutely anything for guys of this caliber. The way I like to put it, we are like fans wandering through a desert, just gasping for a drink of water. And then you've got some fans, some Packers fans in a Michelin restaurant returning a bottle of Chateau Magnon because the grave stands there liking.
Saratoga water, the blue bottle.
Saratoga. But just the complete gap in some people's perception on what is going on. You have fans, like Packers fans right now, after a 4 or 5 game stretch, calling for a complete overhaul of franchises. They're spoiled, okay? They've had success their entire fandom. They don't know what it's like. The grass isn't always greener. People need a perception change. If everyone could just spend a day in a Cleveland Browns fan's shoes or a New York Jets fan's shoes, I think they'd have a whole fresh perception, I think. So that's my rant.
I love it though, Jason. Like, you know, when it comes to like you're after reading out Mike Tomlin there, it's one that I cannot pay attention to at all because it's just that we know something you don't know. This culture, we're jaded of it and it's no good. Any other franchise would be happy to have our culture, except we just don't want it. Give us like anyone else is that's not able to get it done. I completely agree. When you read them out, and I have not seen those headlines, I don't know how deep you had to go.
Where have you been this week?
No, I've seen headlines, Michael, obviously, but like Kyle Shanahan, it's like anyone that's commenting about Kyle Shanahan understanding that they've been so depleted, it's like that is not something that I could ever click towards. There's no way. So Jason, good on you embracing that.
Yeah, that Kyle Shanahan one was like, oh, he can only get us to the NFC Championship every year. Oh my God, he hasn't got us to Super Bowl. Oh, I can't stand it. The privilege.
The privilege. You know, my rant kind of went somewhere else, but it was actually Michael listening out. I was listening. I know you were listening to Pat McAfee on Monday, as was I.
I'm presuming it was yours. No business class flights to the Super Bowl. Is that what you're annoyed about?
And listening to him, I think it was Adam Schefter gave out a quote via Peter King saying that of the 350 MVP votes in the last 7 years, only one has gone to non-QB. Michael, you were listening. Jason, do you want to throw out a guess there real fast if you're able to, over the last 7 years, which non-quarterback might have gotten an MVP vote?
Saquon?
No, Cooper Kupp, the Triple Crown year, 2021, wasn't it? I understand the argument that the person that touches the ball the most is the most valuable, i.e. the quarterback. If I had a vote, it'd be going to Matt Stafford. But when it comes to Jonathan Taylor, why can't it be the most positive influence on an offense? There the other day, Michael, you would have been obviously in the flesh watching this. The end of the half, Daniel Jones underthrows a pass and it's picked off. And all the stands online were in the comments straight away. There's nothing wrong with this because we trust Daniel Jones now in 2025 because of the workload that he's been able to do. I just thought it was such a, no, it's not Daniel Jones doing what he's getting done right now. It's because the offense around him is clicking in such an outrageous way. So when you're talking about that trust, though, start of the third, Daniel Jones bites on simulated pressure from Jesse Bates. It ends up in the strip sack. What happens on the next drive? 10 Jonathan Taylor runs, including one that came off a direct snap to Tyler Warren, a Tyler Godson run, and then 2 Daniel Jones passes and 2 scrambles. So talk to me again. Who do you trust if those numbers have literally backed up who the most important player is, and who do you trust? What about if we were voting instead, not for who touched the ball the most, but who held on to the ball or who had the ball in their possession for longer than the other one? I do not have a problem with Daniel Jones, but despite his outrageous sack numbers lately and his turnovers, it just cringes. I just cringe when people say that Daniel Jones is the leader of that team, when you can absolutely see that Jonathan Taylor leads one of the best teams that have completely turned around. He right now, through 10 weeks, has the most points scored in the NFL. It is not a kicker. The last person to lead the NFL in points at the end of the year who was not a kicker was the 2006 Daniel Thomason season. What he's doing is outrageous. If you say, well, last year Saquon Barkley didn't get it. Saquon Barkley through 10 weeks had more yards on 48 more rushing attempts. If you look at the averages or whatever, Jonathan Taylor has more yards per rush right now. He's more touchdowns, 15 rushing touchdowns versus 8, 2 receiving touchdowns versus 1, 260 receiving yards versus 165. Just give me one vote, please, towards Jonathan Taylor to say that this award is not the most valuable quarterback in the league, because that seems to definitely be where it's going right now. That is and that rant is absolutely brought on by seeing Instagram comments from people saying that Daniel Jones is an MVP candidate because he's with the Colts right now. Michael, I saw you roll your eyes at least 3 times as I spoke there.
No, I'm just tired. All good. Taylor is the MVP for me right now. Can you hear it? Can you hear it?
What was that?
Heart's going.
The heartbeat.
Heart's going. Heart's going. It's time for our headache of the week before we get out of here. I'm going to start off. Greg Dulwich scores 2 touchdowns for the Dolphins this weekend in Miami. Hasta la vista, baby. Y gracias, hombre. Who you got, Jason?
Christian Watson. I think he could have a big week. Packers are a bit thin out wide. Golden's dealing with a shoulder issue. Dobbs' status. He left the game on Monday night. Of course, bad news about Tucker Kraft being out for the year. This Giants defense is leaky. They give up a few big games to opposing wideouts. And Christian Watson, since he's come back, he's been the main man for Jordan Love. So I could see him having a big game this week.
Mark?
Where are you getting these things? You're getting way too excited. Mine was actually the New York Giants being fun. Outside, obviously, we covered it a few weeks back, the negative around the thing. But when Jameson Winston goes in a quarterback, look, I love the player, and I'm not saying that this weekend they don't get the bounce that you typically get from firing your head coach, but Cam Scadaboo and Jackson Dart, as he is in concussion right now, it just feels like a fever dream that they were a fun and frisky team there for a couple of weeks as we go with Jameson Winston.
I'm saying nothing. Giants fans. And on that note, and have a great week. If you're in Madrid, let us know. Virgin Media 2 on Sunday, and they'll be back for week 12 next week. But in the meantime, take care, be safe, look after yourselves, and hopefully your club continues in the championship this week. For now, God bless. Bye-bye.